more lives. In arena at one game, that can mean over 19,000 fans at any given time. This year, the Souls partnered with Greater Media to expand our impact on the tri-state area. With the help of top radio stations behind us like WMMR, WMGK, Ben FM, The Fanatic, and ESPN Radio, there is no one in the Delaware Valley that is out of our reach. It is with this partnership that we were able to bring great awareness to childhood sexual abuse recently in light of the scandals going on in the sports that have greatly affected our children. The Philadelphia Children's Alliance is an organization that the Philadelphia Soul have supported since our first season in 2004. It didn't take a scandal for us to realize the importance of working with an independent nonprofit organization which promotes healing and justice for child sexual abuse victims in Philadelphia. By conducting state-of-the-art forensic interviews, providing victim support services, collaborating with other agencies, and leading the development of an integrated response. They are a multi-agency, interdisciplinary response for victims of child sexual abuse in Philadelphia. The Children's Alliance exists to create a more effective care and response to children who have been sexually abused. When a victim is brought into their child-friendly facility, highly skilled forensic interviews facilitate a team interview process and conduct a child interview in a neutral, objective, and supportive manner, working to eliminate further trauma for the child. Once the interview is complete, before the child leaves, they are given a teddy bear. For this reason, the Soul has, in seasons prior, and will again at our first game this season, have a teddy bear drive for the Philadelphia Children's Alliance. Imagine the impact if every fan brought a teddy bear to our first game that could be given to the PCA and then to a victim of child sexual abuse. This season, we wanted to find a way to bring more recognition to the work that they do at the Philadelphia Children's Alliance, and with Greater Media, we were able to create an all-day radiothon supported by other athletes, sports commentators, comedians, and the radio station's personalities to create awareness for this epidemic and funds to assist the PCA in the work that they do every day. Without the power of a professional sports team behind us, this would not have been possible. Another way the Soul are impacting our youth is through our soul moving experience. Thinking about this program reminds me of the first NFL game I attended with my dad and how that one game helped shape the person I am today. We lived in North Jersey and I've been watching football for years. When I was around 10, my dad got tickets to a New York Jets game. We went, just the two of us, and it was an experience that I will never forget and fueled my love of the game. It helped turn my passion for football into a career in football. With the soul-moving experience, we can do that for other kids. By way of generous donations by individuals and companies, the Soul is able to provide tickets to games to children who might not otherwise be able to make not only any professional sporting event, but specifically an arena football game. To date, the program has allowed over 50,000 children and adults to attend a Philadelphia Soul game. Children and parents who either due to their economic situation or because of illness or disabilities are able to come out as a group or as a family or as a father and daughter to leave their troubles behind for a few short hours and have what could be a life-changing experience or even just a couple hours of fun and a much-needed break. Hopefully they will remember, as I did, the time they had at a Soul game, and it can carry them through the hard times they will no doubt endure. While it might not be much, it could be just what they need at that time or what could help shape their future. Players, our dance team, the Soulmates, and our mascot all take time at the end of our games and at appearances to talk with kids, take pictures, and sign autographs. They are looked up to as heroes and role models, and kids can dream of one day being like them. I've always looked at working in sports and feel our players, coaches, and staff should as well look at it as a privilege. We have a livelihood because people want to watch a game being played. Without fans and supporters, there is no soul. There are no football games. That is why it is so amazing and so important that we take their support and turn and give it right back in a way that only a sports organization could.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Now we'll hear from Lance Lee, Tennis as Life Therapy.
All right, I'm the Vice President of Tennis and National Partnerships at Arthur Ashe Tennis and Education. We're located in East Falls, Philadelphia, Manioc, Roxborough. We provide, very similar to Ed Snyder Youth Hockey Foundation, opportunities through sport, like hockey in many communities in the city. Tennis isn't a very popular game. It isn't thought of a cool game to play. I played at Arthur Ashe as a kid, and when I would go to practice, kids would say, well, you know, do you have your short white shorts on and your collared shirt? So as time has evolved, kids have realized that I think that not just from the benefits of on the court through tennis, but some of the benefits that you can get off the court as far as college scholarships, exposure to different areas of the country and the world, and I'll get into that a little bit later on in our program. But we have what we consider a hub and spoke model. The hub is actually in East Falls. We have a 16-court facility, 8 indoor courts, 8 outdoor courts. That is the hub. The spokes are located throughout the city. We have what's called a National Junior Tennis and Learning Program that's located at 33 parks and recreation centers throughout the city. So pretty much any place where you see a tennis court in the city of Philadelphia at a rec center, we run programming there for 9 weeks during the summer. It started off as a no-cost program. We used to have a big tournament at the Spectrum called the U.S. Pro Indoor. That tournament went away, and with it, a lot of our funding. In today's economic times, it's very difficult to put kind of all your fundraising eggs into one basket. And that one basket that we have right now is our annual benefit. So about 35% of our operating budget comes through that benefit. We look to individual donors, grants, the USTA, the United States Tennis Association, and obviously user fees, which we try to keep low. So as far as tennis and life skills, when I thought about tennis, I thought about how can I equate the game of tennis to life. And then I thought about some attributes that tennis has that are unique to the game. One of those is that there's no time limit. Every game there's periods, there's a half, there's quarters. The game ends at some point. I'm not sure how many people are tennis fans here, but I think just last year there was a pretty long match. I think it went several days. It was Isner and Mahut, 2 guys, and so one thing about life is obviously you're going to face adversity. You might start off down, but if you keep fighting, it's not over until it's over, and that's one thing I like about tennis. Another unique thing about tennis is there's no timeouts. So if I'm having a bad day and I'm interacting with my boss or I'm interacting with some of my kids, I can't just say, you know what, timeout, I got to get away from this. You have to deal with it, and tennis is the same way. You can't stop the clock. There's no coaches in the game of tennis. You're on court by yourself. Even though parents try to serve as coaches during matches, it's illegal. In professional and junior tennis, you have a coach, but during the actual match, no coaching is allowed. So you have to think for yourself. And again, in the real world, we want our kids to be independent thinkers. Yes, I can tell you something, but I want you to question it as long as it's done in a respectful way. I'll say, which side of the court is the Jew side? And one kid will go over there. I'll say, you sure? No, it's over there, it's over there. And I want them to say, no, it's over here. You know, so we don't want robots. We don't want people to think inside the box. And some of the greatest thinkers and some of the greatest people in our history have been outside the box thinkers. So people would say, well, that's not what society says, or that's not what, you know, whomever says. So we want to develop that. Honesty and integrity. When you're out on court, at the very high level matches, there are referees, but in junior tennis, high school tennis, until you get to an extremely high level, people are asked to basically police themselves. Kids have to call the ball and the lines themselves. So what we stress upon our kids, if it's close, give it to them. Because when a kid from our program goes out into the community, goes out to a tournament, whether it's on the sectional, district, or national level, they're representing us. So it's not, you know, young Andy's acting up. It's young Andy, and, you know, where does he play? Oh, all those Arthur Ashe kids are, you know, they're all like that. So we want a kid to realize that when you go out to school, when you go out for a job, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing your family, you're representing your school, you're representing your community. So there's some, you know, connection there. A lot of times when you go out to a match, you realize, hey, I was going to focus on really serving and volleying and attacking this kid's forehand, and then I realized this kid has a huge forehand. And this isn't so much just unique to tennis, but people have to change their game plan. A lot of sports have the luxury of going in to call a timeout or going into halftime and making what, you know, in football they might call a halftime adjustment, or basketball a halftime adjustment, or a coach can say, let me draw up this play. With tennis, that happens within that young person. So you have to develop strong analytical skills if you want to be successful. If I'm getting long, I don't know how much time I have, so just cut me off here and I'll just get it. again, this is something that cuts across the board on all sports. Motion creates emotion. I can walk into a clinic, I can walk into a practice and not even open my eyes, but from the energy of the coaches, from the amount of balls being struck, from just the feel of it, from looking at the parents' reaction, I can tell if my guys, my pros are doing a good job and my kids are working hard. So what does a good clinic feel like? It's kids constantly moving. About 10 years ago, you would walk out to a tennis court and you might see one kid hitting a ball and 10 kids in line. Those days are long gone. There's a whole new initiative called Quick Start Tennis where I think the gentleman's name was Mr. Britt, talked about these 7 people being, it's the same way in tennis. And one of the reasons I feel that way is because in non-traditional sports like hockey, like lacrosse, like swimming, the talent pool that we're picking from is very small. Just like tennis, just like ice hockey, very few people in the inner city say, I want to pick up a tennis racket and I want to be a tennis player. Very few kids in the inner city are picking up a hockey stick or hockey skates and saying, I want to be a hockey player. And I think that's because they can't turn on the TV and say, well, that guy looks like me, he came from where I came from, I can do that. It's the same way with tennis. So I think if we can get kids playing and exposed to a game that maybe their brothers and their mothers and fathers and their sisters and brothers don't play, and show them, hey, this is accessible to you. We'll provide you the opportunity. We'll give you a scholarship private lesson. We'll pay for your court time. I think it'll really widen the talent pool and widen the group of people who can play at a high level. I tell kids all the time, basketball, football, they're great sports, but they're saturated. So would you rather play a sport that everybody's playing, or do you think you have a better shot of getting a college scholarship at something where not too many people are playing? And that's our ultimate goal. It's not to produce a professional athlete, it's to produce a college going young person. And if not, if they play college at that level, that's fantastic. But if not, our primary goal is building positive young men and women. The mental game. In life, you have to have strong mental aptitude. And that's something just like a forehand or a backhand that must be practiced. So we work with a guy who actually comes in maybe once every couple of months or whenever we can afford him. He actually works with the Flyers and the Sixers. I believe his name's Joel Fish. And he does mental training with our kids. Some of it's done on the court. So we'll see a kid react negatively, maybe bang his racket, yell out, hit a ball. Okay, what's going on in your mind? What are you thinking about? Giving them actual steps that they can take to deal with the mental game. I tell the kids, once you get to a certain level, everybody can hit the ball. Everybody's consistent. What separates an average player from a great player is their mental toughness, amongst other things. But there's a reason why Roger Federer can beat everybody in the world, but when he sees Nadal in the final, just something happens. So look, great for 2 sets, and then for 3 sets, he's just mentally checked out. So the mental game, and like other sports, is a huge component in the game of tennis. Weapon development. You see a lot of kids, and I was one of them. I went to college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I graduated from college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I saw a movie, it's called Legally Blonde, and the girl said, your resume looks like you just woke up and kind of wanted to go to law school one day. And it's like I knew I wanted to get a job in sports. I was interning with the Washington Wizards. As anyone who wanted to work in sports knows, it's very difficult to get a paying job. So I was stuck in DC, 6 months left on my lease. Had no idea what I wanted to do. So I said, I got to get a graduate degree, make myself more marketable. So what can I do to do that? Having a JD behind your name sounds good. So what test can I take where there's no math and no science? So the LSAT, great, bang. I didn't do that. I couldn't get a math because I remember I actually had a celebration after my freshman year and I didn't have to take math again. So that's how I ended up in law school. So my point is, we try to get our kids know your strengths, know what you want to do. Go out with the plan, work the plan, and execute. Don't go out there aimlessly. I tell kids, that's a nothing ball. That shot had no purpose. So if you're going to school and you're going out with no purpose and no focus, it's very hard to be excellent at something when you're not driven and determined and striving for a specific goal. So again, with mental development and weapon development, that creates a very strong player. And I think that can kind of tie over into life as well. Train locally, compete globally. One thing that I think is a fantastic attribute to tennis is You can't get really good just by playing the same people. You can't attain a high ranking and get noticed by college coaches unless you play on the national level. So as a kid, I got to go to Arizona, California, Sweden, Ireland, South America. Now, what makes it difficult is because if I didn't have a sponsor, I couldn't afford it. So you have average ability kids who have deep pockets who can go to all these national opens and get ranking points and get noticed, as opposed to a kid who doesn't have deep pockets but is extremely talented and can only play at the sectional level. Which is why, you know, we do what we do as far as raising funds and try to, again, provide opportunities to those who are not having them. We can't do it for everybody, but hopefully we can work an arrangement like, that's why I think what Ed Snyder does is great. Not everybody is fortunate enough to have an Ed Snyder or Philadelphia Flyers backing them, but at some point I think a gentleman named Jeff Harrison spoke this morning. He's with World Team Tennis. So we partnership with them and we try to tap into his donor base so we can get kids to get out of their environment. I've got some kids who their whole life is their 4-block radius. Everything they do is in their community, church, their friends, they don't get out, and so their minds are very small. And I was the same way as a kid, and tennis really opened my eyes up to an entirely different world. I went to a tournament and I was out, you know, all this grass all over the place, and I was with a buddy of mine who's from Allentown. So that's the biggest great game I've ever seen. The guy looks at me and laughs and says, "That's a deer." And, you know, when you're in the city and it's just all concrete, you don't see those things. It's no wonder to me that some of our kids are in such a bad shape. If you walk through the streets of wherever, and then you go out to the suburbs and you just walk outside, it's like, how can you not have a chip on your shoulder with, you know, not that they're set up to fail, but just the aesthetics of grass and nice things as opposed to concrete and people in the corner and all types of stuff going on. So when kids come on the tennis court, all those things get left off the court. And all they know is, hey, I don't care where you're from, what color you are, how much money you have. You love tennis, I love tennis, let's get it in, let's play, and let's work hard. And that's the environment we try to foster. We're not just a tennis center, we're a community. Parents are involved, families are involved. Kids get dropped off at 3 o'clock and stay until 10 o'clock at night. They're in the library, they're in the classroom, they're working together. So it's really a microcosm of life, because I don't want any kid to think that their immediate surroundings are all that it is. I think it's important that they interact with kids from different backgrounds, and they can learn from each other, not just on the court. Hey, I see you hitting your forehand with the reverse follow through. I always do it traditional style. Or hey, I didn't realize that, you know, you said grace before you eat. I only say it once a day, or whatever. There's a lot to be learned from people on and off the field.
1 more minute there, Lance.
Thank you. And just to wrap it up, it's a lifelong game, and there's not too many 65 or 70-year-old football players or basketball players. It's a family activity that you can, the whole family can be involved in from age 4 all the way up to 90. And it's something that's had a huge impact on my life, and I'm just really pleased to be impacting young people on a daily basis. And for all of us who work with young people and in sport, I think it's truly a blessing that we were able to do something that we love and actually see the tangible results. Because I've got kids coming back from college now saying, hey, if it wasn't for you and Arthur Ashe, I wouldn't have made it to college. So that is a really important thing and makes me very proud.
Lori McClure, Peters-McClure with Facebook.
I don't work for any specific organization. I'm just, not just, but I'm a mom and I'm a soccer coach. And I was a therapist for about 20 years. And I decided to, thought maybe just discussing loss was a pretty intense topic. So it's a very short amount of time, a lot of information. I'm just going to fly through it. And then if you have any questions, you can talk to me afterwards, which is fine. As Jordan so eloquently talked about, and also Dr. Hastings talked about loss, and none of us are immune to it, and we all face it every day in some way, shape, or form. That's about what life is, with loss. And unfortunately, as a coach, I've watched a lot of my I coached girls soccer, and I've watched my girls go through many losses, whether it be divorce, whether it be having to move, whether it be losing a game, or losing a friend. And unfortunately, this fall, we lost one of our coaches in a car accident. Unexpectedly, and he left his wife and 4 daughters, fall under the age of 12. And so it was my responsibility as a coach, I felt, to help the girls address loss. And as a therapist, at least I had some tools that I could use to help them through, at least begin through the process. There are 5 different stages in loss. In Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book that she wrote back in 1969, it was on death and dying. She outlined 5 stages. The first is denial and isolation. The second is anger. The third is bargaining. The fourth is depression. And the fifth is acceptance. Number 1 with denial and isolation. Here's 3 things that you can do. We've talked a little bit about it today. Is number 1, accept the emotions or the lack thereof that the individual is going through. I believe Jordan even said in his process of going at the hospital, learning that people are going to perceive things differently, they're going to adjust to things differently. Just because I might have a deep emotional outward reaction to loss, you might have an internal reaction to loss, and we need to respect that. And just know that we need to accept how each person is going to face a sudden loss. Also allow the person to self-preserve, whatever that looks like. It's not a cookie cutter approach to how you deal with loss. 2 words, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, can be adequate enough in that moment when they're in shock of a loss. I'm sorry can be the biggest thing you can help someone, just to say I'm so sorry and move on. And number 3 is be available to support and assist in any way possible. But don't say, let me know how I can help you, because this person is now in shock, is now overwhelmed with their life changes that are going to happen. And by saying, well, let me know what I can do for you, you're adding something else to their plate. Look for opportunities, be available, look for signs that you can kind of step in, even if it's a meal, or if it's a card, or if it's just, hey, I'm thinking about you, an email, whatever you can do, just to let them know you're there for them and that you're available. But don't put the responsibility on them to reach out to you. You reach out to them. In the second stage of anger, this is when an individual will buffer what's going on, and they'll wrap themselves in that emotion of anger, again, to just not be able to want to feel the pain that they're feeling, and so anger emerges. And acknowledge their anger, and once again allow them to have that. No should-ups. Don't be shooting on people when they're in that anger stage. That's not your place. They need to process these emotions. They need to have them. They need to accept them. They need to work through them. And by you trying to deny them that, you're hurting them in the process, and you're also causing a chasm between your availability and their need for you. So just acknowledge it and just allow them to have it. Ask how you can come alongside of them. They're going to go through the why me question. And don't try to, again, say, well, it's really not that bad, or it will get better tomorrow. Just allow, again, it's asking them to have permission to have that feeling. And then also arrange for them to have some kind of expression of their loss. We don't want them to have to suppress it. We don't want them to have to deny it. And what I should have said too is, even though they have these 5 stages, they can come at different times, and they can also fluctuate between stages as well. So they could be going through the anger stage and then to the bargaining stage and then back to the anger stage. And I mean, it can go, it's all going to be different depending upon the individual and how they're wired. As we've heard today, we're all different, and so as we face loss, we're going to handle things in a different way. So anyway, arrange for them to face and express their experience of loss. The funeral, things that happen if it's a loss of death, there's so much attention in that first week or 2 weeks or month, but what happens the next month, or what happens the next month? I think a lot of us are very good at crisis, jump in and help in the immediate, but when that loss continues, a grieving period is actually an entire year at least, because you're hitting holidays, the first holiday, the first Mother's Day, or the first Father's Day, or the first anniversary, or the first birthday. We have to keep in mind those things and think about being available in the long term, not just at the moment of crisis. Bargaining is when people really start to feel that they have no control, and so they start to bargain with God. Okay, well, if you do this, then I'll do this, or if you bring this person back, or if you make this happen, or if you help have this happen, then I'll be a better person, or I promise I'll never be angry again, or I promise. because they've lost control, and now they're trying to gain some control back. And what I say is altruism. Give them opportunities to give back to the community, give them opportunities to give, and that will help them feel a little bit more in control again, and maybe become a little bit more centered. Depression, Jordan spoke quite a bit about that. In depression, you can affirm, be attentive, look for signs. As a coach, I was watching my girls to see how they responded, how they reacted to their loss, and tried to make sure that I could be there for them as they needed that support or that encouragement, and adjust. Our coach's daughter was on our team and she needed some time off, of course. Let's try to work it out, but how can we try to bring her back in so that she knows that she's still a part of this team, but we respect her grieving process. So, come alongside of us as you can, but make adjustments for those who are going through that. And then the fifth stage is acceptance. You want to advance them to that place, or you want to be there for them when they get there, but it's a long road. And some people will not get to that point. Some people will live in the moment of loss for a very long time. And again, it's not for us to judge them in that. They have to get there on their own, in their own time, and when they're ready. And when that happens, you can celebrate that, but in the process, be patient, be loving, be kind, be encouraging, be supportive in any way that you can think. I mean, ultimately, loss and mourning are deeply personal, and it's a singular experience. Nobody can help a person through it any faster than they would want to get it through it, or you can't force that. You can't force that. And so, what our responsibility again is mostly be available and be attentive, and see how you can be the proactive one in the process. So it's a lot of information, but I want to give it.
We have time for one or two questions. Do we have one or two questions from the audience? And actually, before I do that, Melissa, I believe you brought somebody came with you from Seoul. Is that right? Would you like to introduce?
Yes, this is Tanner Varner. He is one of our defensive backs on the team.
Any questions? One or two questions, and then we'll wrap up with the plenary presentation. Yes.
I wasn't making just a statement. I was thinking about how many movies have been made about the law of an athlete or who has, missed the last shot or whatever, and spends in their whole life then just, is they're the drunk in the bar or whatever, and they're always reliving that loss. And I'm just thinking about how we, from today, all of the conversation today about this build-up and the emphasis we put on this idea of winning and losing and how we define ourselves. And then if you're defining yourself as that, as the person who's supposed to put the basket in the basketball or, in the hoop and so forth, that how that loss, we might, those of us who are not extreme athletes or whatever, kind of go like, I don't get it, like how is this guy, spending the rest of his life in the toilet after this loss? And so I think that even though you were speaking about the loss of a person, I was thinking about all these people here today that are on another plane, and that it's sometimes hard when you're not in that experience to recognize how dramatic that loss could be for someone if they define themselves in a certain way. If they define themselves as that supreme athlete.
I think it's very similar to anyone who has a job. And so you define yourself by being a teacher or being a lawyer and then possibly losing that job, even as Bill talked about losing his position here with the 76ers and having that adjustment. So it's important, I think, for us to try to put ourselves in that person's shoes in the sense of, okay, well, how could they possibly lose their identity by missing a shot or not scoring the touchdown or whatever? But that's just like any other person trying to find their identity in their achievements as opposed to who they are as an individual. And I think that many people can face that whether they're an athlete or not.
One last question, comment. Yes, Rick.
With loss, death of someone, close to you, have you found that kind of switching up the usual